Hello, good evening, viewers. Welcome to this new episode. Today, learn, we are going to focus on direct mapping, one of the three main cache mapping techniques used in computer architecture. We have cache mapping techniques and we have different types of it. First of all, from our slide, we have the direct mapping. What do we mean by direct mapping? This means that each memory block is allowed to go to exactly one cache line. What do we mean by that? It means that the memory is a block that allows for every cache book to go in a one straight line. So that's how we mean by direct mapping. And direct mapping always a slope heading towards the right hand side. And what do we mean by that? Is one-to-one mapping. What do we mean one-to-one mapping? Every individual, let's say a domain has a codomain. So every domain has one codomain. And every codomain has one domain in the x-axis. That's what we mean one-to-one mapping. There's no flexibility. It cannot be changed. If two blocks map to the same line, one will overwrite the other even if there are empty lines elsewhere in each cache. So from the line we can see that each memory block mapped to one cache line. So every memory block, let's say we have items like, let's say we have John, we see map, we have John, we see, and let's say Salim, we have John, and we have Jamal, and we have one line, let's say human. So Jamal, Kofi, Salim are what? Our memory block, and they are mapping through the character of what? Human. So the block of Jamal are what? Are the memory block which are mapping to the cache line which is what? Human in a scenario. And the address is split into two. First is split to what? Into three, which are the tag, index, offset. What do we mean by tag? This identifies which memory block is being referred to. It helps in checking if the right block is currently stored in the cache. This one tries to identify. What do we mean by identify? It tries to indicate which memory block is being referred to indicate that, let's say Jamal is a block in memory block. So Jamal is our tag, and we are trying to check if the right block is currently stored in the cache. So we are trying to map and see whether Jamal is a human or he's not a human. So that's what we mean by tag. And what do we mean by index? Index means this determine which cache line the memory block will go to. Like our arrangement we said earlier, we have Jamal, John, and Jamal is what? First index, which is what? 0. So Jamal move forward in the cache line. That's what we mean by the index. And let's think of doing a modulus operation like the block number, percent, and number of cache lines. That's how the direct mapping normally works. And what do we mean by offset? Just take it, a word, offset. This tells us which byte inside the cache line we want to access. This determines the number of bytes stored in the cache line we want to identify. So right now, as a Jamal being the memory block, and we have the cache line being what? Human. We are trying to know the number of bytes attribute of Jamal in human he contain in the human. That's what we mean by offset. What do we mean by the proofs? The importance of direct mapping. So it's simple and fast. That one is straightforward. There's no stress of doing it, and it's easy to implement in hardware with a very little logic. This one just is very easy to work on the hardware with a little what logic. And the cons means the disadvantage, high conflict misses. The downside is the high conflict misses. What does that mean? If two frequently access memory block both map to the same line, they will keep kicking each other out of the cache, even if the rest of the cache is free. If the rest of the cache is free, if they are free, what do we mean if they are free? If they are free, then if the rest of the cache is free, they can't use any other what line. So by going, so if I'm to summarize the direct mapping on here, oops, oh, oh, gosh, there's some issue I'm going through right now. Okay, to summarize, to wrap up what I said right now, what do we mean by direct mapping? It's like giving each student a fixed seat number, no matter what no matter what that the student must sit in that one seat. It's efficiently and direct for a, but if two students want the same seat, there's a conflict because we made the seat for every person to have one seat, but whenever two people tries to sit on one, you see that there will be a conflict which can which can be what a disorganized in what in the arrangement. So any question before we move on to the associative and set of associative mapping. So let's go. What do we mean by fully associative mapping? Any memory block can go in any cache line. Let's define fully associative. In this scheme, any block from main memory can be placed into the line or slot in the cache. Any memory block can be plugged into the cache line, and there are no restrictions. Think of it like a complete open, let's say, parking lot where you can park your car's memory, let's say the cars being the memory block in any available space, let's say the cache room. For example, you gonna you go to a market and you drive your car and you see indented with like you see some isolated space, you can go there and park because that site is a market site. That's what we mean. Any memory can go in any cache line. And what do we mean by the address is split into tag and offset? Address structure, the memory address is split into parts, the tag and what the offset. The uniquely identifiers, which block of memory is stored in the cache. This is unique. Every, let's say, car 1 is also the car 1 is always a car 1, a car 2 is always a car 2. And what do we mean by the offset? Specify the exact byte. Do what? Specify the exact byte within the block. Whenever car 1 contain a portion of, let's say, 350 meters area, let's say an area, that's the byte it contains. Point to the address split into the tag and the off splits. Let's say the important. Alhamdulillah. So the importer is flexible. What do we mean by flexible? Since any block can go anywhere, there's no conflict or misses. Because as far as maybe let's say on our previous example of providing a seat for every student 1-1, if student 2 seat is stacked like students 2, if the student 2 seat was occupied by someone, he can move to the next seat to have it as his or her seat. So there's no conflict or disorganized in what our fully associative what mapping. And let's come to the disadvantages of what the fully associative, which is what slow and complex. To find a block and the cache must check all the tasks in parallel, which is time consuming. The cache have to check each seat in a parallel before what it can execute or store the data into the memory, because it will take a lot of time for every individual to do what, to get a seat. Complex hardware, what do we mean by the complex? Let's say in a hardware require compara in a hardware where we will have what comparators for every cache line, making it what expensive to implement the large what cache. So why use it? Why do we use it? So let's go on to the set associative what set associative mapping. What do we mean by set associative mapping? What do we ask a student if they ask what is a set associative? We said earlier fully this one is a set. A set associative mapping is a compromise between direct map, which are direct map, and fully what associative. This is a what, a combination of the direct and the what fully associative. And block blocks map to the set of lines. Example, four-way, which is called 4 lines per set. We have, let's say, 4 cars, and we have what, let's say we have a T junction. A T junction, car 1 can take the left corner, and car 2 can take the right corner, and car 3 can take what, the front corner, and car 3 can take a diagonal to the what, the right corner. So that's how we mean by this example. Address is what split into what, tag, set, index, and what, offset. What do we mean? That it identify the memory tag. The tag identify what, the memory block. And what do we mean by set index? The set index determine which set the block can be what, placed. It determines the set. Let's say car 1 being 1, so we have an interval of what, 3 cars, and it being what, car 1 being what, 0 index, and car 2 being what, 1 index, and car 3 being what, a 2 index. That's what we mean by the index. And what do we mean by the offset? Locate the exact byte within the what block. It locates the curve of, let's say our scenario, the curve, the velocity or the acceleration of the car turning to the left. Let's make in a scenario that that's the byte. It measure how that car turns to the left side. So that's how the memory tries to calculate the car tries to calculate what, the byte inside the block. And what do we mean by the offset? The offset, the memory block map to a specific set, but within that set it can occupy any line. What do we mean by line? A specific set, but within that set. So let's say set, let's say 1 2 3 up to what, 4, and it can occupy any line. Let's say 1 can occupy index what, 4. You see, 1 can go back to the position of the 4th to be what, index 1, and what, occupy any line, like a fully associative. When searching only the line in the relative set are checked faster and what, fully associative. The balance, flexible, and what, speed. It's very balanced with speed because it's a combination of what, the direct mapping and what, the fully associative mapping. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming here for another section. And I will be happy to know anything concerning what I really explained. And please try, if you have any button question from your mind, you can share it on the comment section for me to try to make a video to explain it more than what I did right now. Thank you so much, and please subscribe and like and share. Have a nice day. Thank you. Goodbye.